Hello, beautiful beings. It's Dante here. Thank you again for tuning into the channel today. And today I'm going to talk about draining energies, energy parasites, and even other humans who drain us of energy. Sometimes they call those psychic energy vampires. So this is kind of a deep subject that we couldn't cover all of in one video, though I want to give you some tips, mostly to how to keep you from allowing these other things to drain you of energy. So this is a continuous process, and it's like we're always checking new blind spots in terms of how we may leak our energy. And yeah, I couldn't cover all this in just one video, but I kind of want to give just some introductory points to help make this a bit easier. So the first idea then is, if you are completely connected to your source consciousness, none of these entities can affect you. So when you return to that place inside where you know that you are one with a higher power and you truly believe in that connection, there's an infinite flow of love and energy that allows you to not take those energies on. Now, everyone has their own way of doing this. So meditation, yoga, prayer, chanting, toning, find some way that you can establish that connection to source that you can return to. And there's no one way that's better than other ways. I work in many different ways in cultivating that connection. And the pathway of getting there is not the destination. So the pathway is just kind of what gives you permission, what cooperates with your belief systems about reality that can help you remember that connection. Now, the other universal tip is that there is actually nothing out there that isn't already one with this source. Every other being that you experience is an expression of source and is an expression of the same love and light that flows throughout this universe. So that means when we are seeing a negative energy out there in the world and we are having a negative emotion towards it, we're making that negative energy stronger. So a lot of the entities that exist out there simply do not want to remember source consciousness. There's this sort of grand unfoldment taking place as this duality or polarity is how we in lower dimensions learn and evolve. There have to be the same amount, or not necessarily the same amount, but there has to be that option to choose between serving others. Serving others leads you to realize oneness, that there is no separation, that we are all made of the same energy, and if I help you, I'm helping everyone. And then there's the flip side of service to self, that is sort of oriented towards seeing oneself as more important, superior, and most importantly separate from all of creation. And as a separate being, in that consciousness, entities have to siphon energy from other sources. They have to take that energy indirectly. And by taking that same energy of source indirectly, it perpetuates their illusion that they are a separate consciousness. So oftentimes when we have different energies in our field, they can come from a lot of different places. So there's many different levels of this. So the most simple level is just the passings by of the day. We can even take on energies and entities simply from going into different conversations, going into busy, crowded places, especially places where there's a lot of fear-based energies or a lot of selling of things. There can be these energies or entities that come with us. And simply taking a moment to clear yourself, using sound, using incense, simply taking a couple deep breaths in and out and intending with your own mental internal voice, I clear myself of all energies that may have come with me from this day, and I invoke my source connection. So again, affirmations aren't as much about the specifics of what you're saying, but it's about how you feel and how it works with your own internal belief system. So always being aware of how you're feeling in those moments when you're using affirmations as well, and using the very specific wording that helps you shift your vibration from a state of fear into greater love. So those little guys can come into our field quite easily. Now, there are other layers of entities that come to us from our genetic line, and some of these are even, soul fragments or ghosts that come from those who have led to this point, our ancestors. So a lot of people in spiritual work do ancestor work and connection, and it's really important to remember that as you do this, you only want to invoke beings known as guardian ancestors. That's one word for them, though the idea is that these are your ancestors who have reached a certain point in their development that they are of service to others and they have a greater wisdom. And these beings are more concerned with the evolution of consciousness than they are with the perpetuation of their belief system and their pattern. That we have many ancestors who are kind of attached to their way of seeing things, attached to their trauma and to their addictions. So it's said even times these ancestors can experience addictions they haven't let go of through us. So these ancestors don't actually want you to change, and this is why it's kind of important to honor them and give them thanks. It's beautiful to offer some food, offer some incense, offer some blessings to them and gratitude. Though when we're doing work that's oriented around transformation of consciousness, which is really the most important thing in this ascension, we want to be invoking only our guardian ancestors who have gotten to that point of evolution. So now we also have entities that can come to our field through other lifetimes, and a lot of these beings are with us from the moment we incarnate here, coming from other connections. And it doesn't matter if you have those light empowered connections open to beings from Pleiades, to beings from Sirius, so on and so forth. And what I noticed that as I started to open my psychic senses and open my connection and start channeling, that actually even more of these sort of karmic connections from other worlds would kind of come to me and need to purge and clear, and it's honestly still happening. Even like last night, there was another one that I was like, oh, there was somebody kind of siphoning energy from me in influencing my thought forms. So we have to be willing to kind of see this and trust in our imagination and trust in our feeling. If we feel and sense that something is there, it is there. So again, we invoke the connections, and this really powerful language and understanding is entities that are in clear service to others. As somebody's passing.
Excuse me.
Yeah?
Excuse me.
Yeah, right on. Oh, I didn't actually pause it. Okay, so I'll just continue even with that little bit in. Beings in service to others, in service to the light, are those that we want to kind of invoke into our space when we're doing any sort of ritual work. And they will support us in clearing out those other energies. And when we get to this point where we actually feel like something is stuck to our field, and I mentioned like it can come from other star systems, but actually many of the entities that we will take from other lifetimes come from this plane as well, the Earth plane. I'm just so in the stars, I forgot to mention that. From the Earth plane, from past civilizations like Lemuria and Atlantis. There's positive and negative aspects of all of them. and from this solar system, from the planets of Mars and Maldek, and even from the planets Pluto, outer planets that you would think there's no life there. But there have been bases there, and there has been activity there in a long distant past. And sometimes those energies can grab into our field even more powerfully. So in order to clear them out, you maybe want to look at some of the videos I have about this crystalline light chamber, or the vertical axis column, ascension column. People have a lot of different words for it. So basically our human and soul energy field has this sort of infinitely vertical sort of axis that goes down to the center of the earth, to the center of the universe, through the center of the galaxy, through many stars, and energy flows through that connection. So as we open that up, we allow our soul energy to flow into our body, into our being. Now, every being has this sort of level of connection, and when beings don't interfere with their clear connection up into source, they can can kind of leave the earth plane and return to that source consciousness, or leave whatever plane they have come from. And after they leave their own body, after they die, they return to full source consciousness. And of course, beings who do that without having a ghost can always return in the form of their higher self to make contact with us, because again, everything is here and now. There's only one moment, and what we're experiencing as linear time is just kind of the illusion we create in this third dimension. So all of those beings can still come, but what happens is when they pass the veil of death, still holding on to attachments to separation consciousness, belief systems and fears that keep them believing and experiencing that they are separate from the field of all existence, they will get stuck and left as this sort of floating energy field that will latch onto anything that matches its vibration in a core way. So when I say matches its vibration in a core way, when you have an entity or being like this, there's like a similar trauma, there's a similar wound that brings you to kind of interlock fields. So for example, if there was like trauma of sexual abuse, there are certain entities that are similarly holding on to either the perpetrator or victim side of that trauma and will latch onto somebody's field. And all of the emotional charge of that trauma from this and other lifetimes has to be released. So in order to really clear these things from your field, one of the most important things to do beyond these affirmations and these understandings, as what I've said so far, is to really be able to feel the depth of these emotions and to hold on to a clear anchor to the unconditional love of self, unconditional love from source, unconditional love to all that is, to all others, even those that have hurt you, while feeling that deep and intense pain and suffering that comes from these more traumatic experiences. And as we simply let the love into those feelings, they start to dissolve, and we can ask for any of the entities attached to those feelings and charges to go as well. So just like I was saying before, when you have that crystal clear column of energy from the center of the galaxy to the center of the earth, you're in that clear state of connection. And there may be this other being in your field that is trying to siphon the energy that you are bringing in for your well-being from you. So what you do is you actually visualize an entire other channel of energy that goes, again, from the center of the earth to the center of the universe, galaxy, and whatever. And you ask this being, you sort of command this being to go into that. And sometimes this happens immediately, sometimes it takes more of a process, more of a negotiation, though it can and will happen. Now, how do you know that you have one of these things? So the truth is, often the voices in our head are not really all us. So entities will probably naturally come up when you start a process of self-inquiry into your thoughts. And I think some people have been doing this in a more kind of mindfulness-based way or a psychological-based way and still haven't overcome some of those core thoughts of self-hatred, of unworthiness, of, primal aspects of fear that still creep into consciousness. Sometimes people are just channeling that from the collective, but often there is an entity that is as well feeding off of that energy from individuals and from the collective. And so they continue to feed you those same thoughts, and you may disidentify from them, but sometimes it's really important to just take a moment to say to that inner voice, who are you? Are you really me? And you will oftentimes find that the thought is not you at all. It's actually someone or something else. And this is where you just let your imagination open and go wild, and don't really question too much of I'm making this up, blah, blah, blah. Just, if anything, if this is a little bit weird to you, see it as an experiment and as a meditation, and as you just let your imagination go and you kind of roll with the answers that you get when you start to ask this internal voice, who are you and what you're really from, you may experience something different. So you want to ask this being, of course, are you of the light? And they must answer yes or no. Are you of service to others? They must answer yes or no. So a lot of beings are of the light, but they're not of service to others. They are well-intended, but they are holding on to agendas. And it's good to get a clear sense of everything about them. You ask the being as well, where do you come from? Are you aware that you are dead or disincarnate? Why are you here with me? And then, of course, you revoke consent. I do not consent to you taking this energy from me. I command that you return to Source. And you may also want to invoke many other helping spirits and guides, archangels, your galactic team, your guardian ancestors, beings of the earth, whoever you feel connected to that can support you in that way. So, of course, you can also play with different permission slips like crystals and clearing tools like sage and smudge sticks, and all of this that helps a lot to kind of continuously clear your field of different charges. Though for deeper work with these sort of chronic entities, we have to kind of go deeper into it. Now, I think especially people who are drawn into the spiritual world have entities, but almost everyone has some degree of charge in connection with them. I did some work not that long ago with these sort of weird entity squid-like beings that were kind of feeding off of numbness, and feeding off, they were generating numbness. They feed off of negative emotions. So yeah, the more that you are in that sort of negative emotional state, the more these entities can siphon energy from you. And of course there are many entities that are associated with this more global situation where there are secret societies and different forces that are attempting to swing the collective consciousness into fear. So when there is a great emotion of fear generated, these sort of negative forces can use that energy for their purposes. And that's, again, why the greatest solution to this is stepping into the vibration of love and living love fully. As the Pleiadians say, as the Bashar says, as so many different channeled beings say, it's what brings you joy, it's what brings you passion, it's what brings you love. And doing that as much of the time as you can, focusing upon that with all of your energy. And that isn't to say you don't look at the darkness. Of course, this is a video about looking at the darkness. And it's also affirming in the sense that you have to own that your own negative belief systems are what can attract these beings. And once you let go of the negative emotional charge and you let go of the negative belief, those beings cannot really come in. Now, other people can also sometimes be energy vampires. They can, kind of like with their entities and their vibration, be sort of like sucking energy from other people unknowing it. And it's like people who just kind of want attention, and they don't care if that is negative or positive attention. It's kind of because the entities that are working with them really just want the negative emotional energy, and that feeds them when you give them that attention. So light workers early into the path, and even in different ways, like it's like we go through these different cycles of learning what it means to have boundaries. And for me, it's been many cycles of kind of opening myself a lot, seeing the energy I take on from others, closing myself a lot, focusing inward, then coming to open myself. And like every time we go around that cycle in a new way, and sometimes it's a big long cycle and sometimes it's short and quick, we create stronger boundaries. We have a clearer sense of our connection to that unconditional love, and we're more able to stay in our center despite what may be happening around us. So especially early into this process, again, it's important to allow yourself to have boundaries, allow yourself to say no, and know that we always really want to spread love and light, and we want to help people raise their energy. But not everybody that we talk to that's in that kind of state of complaining or seeking negative attention actually wants to change. Many of them just want that negative attention, and you're going to leave a better and more powerful long-term impact on everyone when you say, I don't have the space for this conversation right now. It feels like you're really just complaining right now and you don't actually want to change, and therefore I can't actually engage with you because it doesn't line up with my values and what I need for myself today. But I really love you and I thank you for the opportunity you've given me to grow. If you can say that or something similar to somebody who's really draining, it will really be a big, powerful revolution inside for you. So yeah, it takes a clear level of discernment, like in a lot of moments, because sometimes these things are a lot more subtle. Like, is what I'm feeling right now originating from me or originating from the other person? And on one level, until a certain point in the process, we're always kind of attracting the perfect match for our own belief systems about ourselves that limit us. So in more kind of less clear situations that feel uncomfortable or feel draining, we have to really find a way to get clear what is mine and what isn't. And coming into full honesty about how you're feeling and what you're seeing in that situation is really the first step for that. And when both parties can come into that clear communication, you can see where there may be energy leaks and drains and where there aren't. So yeah, working on yourself on every level, again, doing the body work physically, exercising, eating well, and then doing that mental emotional work of really living and following your joy, making sure that what you're doing is lining up with your truest expression of love, and at the same time clearing out those negative belief systems, working on yourself, creating strong loving connections. Over time, any of these connections to entities can go and clear. And of course, plant medicine, when done in a clear and protected space with somebody who's experienced, will always kind of give you a deeper nudge into how to clear some of these things. Some of these connections can be removed or cleared during channeling sessions. Though what I find more when I'm working with these higher consciousness beings is that they're more concerned with your own internal programming that attracts these entities. Because again, there's one of the most important things in actually healing from any such interference is a deep degree of self-responsibility. So the belief systems around victimization, the universe did this to me, the demons did this to me, society did this to me, my family did this to me. When we repeat those, they generate a great negative emotional charge, and that is the greatest fuel for the entities. So victimization can be a really hard thing to release for some people, and maybe the most metaphysical freedom from this is understanding that you are not the same person you were before. In every moment, you have the opportunity to totally transform, because in every moment, you're shifting through billions of parallel realities. Every time your vibration shifts into a new parallel reality, you're actually an entire new person, never the same consciousness form. And when you play with that idea and see how using that quantum understanding can create change in your world, it's like micro adjustment after micro adjustment to a macro adjustment of your vibration until you're like, I'm totally not the same person I was. And I think a lot of us, as we go deeper into these energies of ascension, where it's like one week after another, we're not the same person we were the week before. And accepting and jumping into that transformation will always allow a greater healing and clearing taking place. One more thing. So sometimes when we have a lot of these entities, or we're learning this journey of how to manage our personal energy, we also get parasites, intestinal parasites, digestive parasites, or even worse. And again, the same thing applies here, is when you have these parasites, you're kind of giving away your personal power, or kind of attached to victimization. And this is a realm where sensitivity is super important to develop, and perhaps this awareness of sensitivity is something I should have brought into the conversation long before. And I kind of have said it without saying it, but when we're dealing with the draining energy on a spiritual level or on a human level, and then on this biological level, we have to be really sensitive as to how every thought, every behavior, every choice to engage or not engage fills us with an energy of love, or fills us with an energy of fear, or feeling drained. So we have to be so aware of everything we do, because it's all leading into this cumulative vibrational field we're generating. And when it comes to intestinal parasites, yes, we have to do the emotional work, and oftentimes if we have parasites like that, we also have really draining people in our lives. We have to kind of focus on how we change our relationship to, so they're not feeding off of our negative attention or positive attention either, and that they're kind of sovereign in their own right of choosing what expands them. They're focused on their personal development, and so are we. We're not using each other to kind of compensate for our own lack of connection to source, and our own lack of connection to our purpose, to the reason we're here on earth, because that is what fills us with the most powerful energy. And from there, we need each other to co-create and reflect that. But oftentimes in parasitic relationships, we use each other to make up for our lack of connection with source, or our lack of connection with our purpose and destiny. And the same can be said about these intestinal parasites. So you have to work on them on those other levels, and you have to change your diet. You have to become really sensitive to how food affects you, and you have to be willing for this total change of the energies you bring into your life, because that's what allows those things to stay, or what actually pushes them to go. So I went through so many different plant medicines, different herbs, a total eliminative diet, no grains, no carbs, no fruit even for periods of time, and taking so many different purgative plants, and working with things that would clean out the candida, the parasites, this and that, you name it, and then putting so much more probiotics and good bacteria, prebiotics, all of the things. And you want to, as you do this, cultivate a sense of connection with your food and feel the energy you are receiving. Take pleasure not just in sweet taste, but in all of the ways that what you take in affects and changes your body. And it's not just the food you take in, it's how deeply you breathe has a huge effect on your digestive system. Do you use all of your lung capacity? Do you open your lungs with pranayama? Do you move your body in ways that open those energy channels? That in turn affects so much how you digest, and also environmental toxins, right? We have to be aware of the pollutants in the air and in microplastics and so many different levels and layers. So sensitivity is our key in making sure we are not drained of energy. And when we cultivate this, greater ability to channel Source's unconditional love, and we have this vital life force energy channeling through our body, then we can give more unconditionally because we have so much more energy moving through us. And we can give from a place of knowing that we're never going to be drained because we're connected to an infinite source of energy. We have an infinite source of vitality within us. And we can do everything we want to do to give back to others. And we also know that when something doesn't feel right to us, we can stop our giving in that moment to that one specific avenue and focus our energy in the ways that really feels good and really aligns with our intuitive sense of what's better for everyone and everything. Okay, so I hope that's a helpful video in how we can deal with these different sorts of draining energies. And this has grown from many years of working with this, having really chronic digestive issues, having some psychic attacks and interferences, having some codependent relationships. So in a way, I have to also say that it's not always so easy and so instant. It's a journey. And having self-love and self-acceptance for wherever you're at in the process is the most important thing and the greatest medicine. So, and as we go through the journey, we then can help others in the same way. So anyway, thank you for tuning into this lovely video today. It's been a pleasure sharing. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and hit the like button. Oh, I'm saying all those weird things YouTubers say. Shit. Do all the things. And my website is blissbeings.com. And I'm offering channeling sessions and personal healing sessions, astrology readings. I'm working on more long-term courses and one-to-one programs to go a lot deeper with people and help them open their gifts and their connections. If this calls to you, hit me up and tune in for channeling videos and much more on their way. I love you, sending you blessings and a hug on this fantastic day, and hope you continue to enjoy this time in self-inquiry. Instead of self-isolation, let's call this self-inquiry. Have a great day, guys.